and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 3731BN. Today's date is September 15th, 2025, and the title of the episode is National Guard is being pre-positioned. Trump prepares narrative for Antifa and justice. Economic collapse, political and geopolitical news. Now, the deep state, the corrupt politicians, big tech, fake news, the puppet masters, you can see everything that they tried to do with Charlie Kirk and the assassin is completely and utterly failing. And they tried to cover up the fact that this individual was trans. They tried to lead everyone in a completely different direction. And you could see that the governor of Utah was trying to do this too with a lot of the others that were involved in this. But their entire narrative now is completely and utterly falling apart. And people understand that this individual is not a conservative. This person has been living with a trans person. Actually, the trans person is this person's lover. They were planning to assassinate Charlie Kirk, and we're starting to realize, and I think we've always known this, that this operation wasn't just a lone gunman running around, because that's what they like to really use in every single one of these type of events. But what we know is that this was a coordinated effort from the very, very beginning. And it was an operation that took timing, an operation that they had to prepare for. And I do believe that there were a lot of pieces that they had to put into place. And you could see on Discord and many other places, they were all celebrating that they accomplished their mission, which tells you everything you need to know. Now, of course, this is working against the fake news. This is working against the D's. This is working against everything that they've been trying to convince the people of, because they've been trying to convince the people that the right, they're the extremists. They are the domestic terrorists. They are the ones who are inciting violence. But when people are starting to research and people are starting to look at what's really going on, they could see that Charlie, he debated at colleges. He wasn't racist. He was using facts. He was very good at what he did, and he let people speak. He wasn't telling them they can't use their words. He wasn't yelling at them. He wasn't demeaning them. He was not hateful, even though they told him he was hateful, and he always said, give me an example. And you could see that more and more people are starting to see this, and more people are looking at his videos, which is actually destroying the deep state's narrative. And what people are starting to realize is that the left, every single time, they're the ones who are pushing violence. Now, there's a lot of these individuals that are trying to say, well, where were you when we had the Catholic mass shooting? Well, you see, the problem with these people is that the Catholic mass shooting was done by a trans person. The same thing when you start to look at what happened to the Democrat in Minnesota. You know, the one that Tim Walz actually brought on to his advisory board, and the individual said during interviews that Tim Walz was instructing him to kill the Democrats. You see, each one of these, it always comes out to be the D's. It always comes out to be the deep state players. And what's very interesting is if you look at what Trump is doing right now, he is now pre-positioning the National Guard. And when I say pre-positioning, I don't mean he's bringing them into all the different cities and saying, okay, let's go after all these people, because the only way to do this is with the Insurrection Act. So what I mean by pre-positioning is that Trump is saying, okay, let's bring the National Guard into this city. They will protect the federal buildings. Remember, he already has the ruling from the appeals court. They already told him he's allowed to do this, even with the judge in California saying, oh, this violates the Posse Comitatus Act. Well, no, it doesn't. And there was already a ruling, because he is there with the National Guard and they are protecting the federal buildings, or they're there protecting ICE. They're not walking the streets and arresting people. This is very, very different. So think about it. If he places the National Guard, let's say in Chicago, to protect the federal buildings and protect ICE, he places the National Guard in New York City, he has it in LA, in Memphis, New Orleans, and all the other cities around the country. He is now pre-positioning, and he has the National Guard on standby mode. Think about that for a second. Yes, it looks like they're doing nothing. It looks like they're just protecting buildings or protecting ICE. But when something occurs, when the D's take it to the next step and they have their riots, does he have to ship the National Guard to those locations? No, he doesn't. They're already there. He also has a quick strike force where he can send that quick strike force anywhere he wants. They're ready to go. Is he preparing for something? Absolutely. And now Trump is also preparing the narrative for Antifa. He's letting everyone know that they're investigating certain left-wing groups. You know that one of them is Antifa, and there's probably many, many others because those are NGOs and other groups that were involved in pushing their agenda across the country and actually pushing their agenda with the trans movement and everything else. So what I do believe he's doing right now, he's preparing the entire narrative to go after Antifa, which means he's going after Soros, which he already mentioned, which means we're going to see justice. So everything is being prepped and prepared for what is coming. And this is very, very interesting. And you could see that Trump now with the nuclear option, he's getting his nominees confirmed at lightning speed. And they're also going to stop the D's from shutting down the government. All of this is happening at the same time. Because remember, the midterms are very, very important. Because if we're going to have accountability, if we're going to bring people to justice, we need to remove the deep state players that have infiltrated our country. And yes, these are judges, these are prosecutors, these are people in many of the different agencies. All of this has to be cleaned out, and we need to put the people into place that are going to follow the rule of law. So once again, the only way to do a lot of this is to have control over the House, control over the Senate, and actually pass the laws and have them move in a direction where they can impeach certain judges. So without that, this is going to be very, very difficult because what are we going to do? We're going to arrest someone and then the judge is going to be Judge Boasberg. I mean, how do you think this is going to play out? It's not going to play out too well. And I do believe this is why Trump is moving down this path right now and bringing the deep state players down this path to actually expose who's really controlling the violence in this country. People are going to see for the first time the true domestic terrorists. And people in this country are going to be shocked. Now, we could see that there were certain states, when Trump said to lower the flags at half-mast, certain states, certain cities, they decided not to do that. One of them was New Jersey. Another one was New York. Gavin Newsom, he pretty much didn't go either way. And there were a lot of towns in California that decided to lower the flags to half-mast. So he wasn't pushing it, but he wasn't denying. He was playing the middle ground. Maybe that's because he's going to run for president. So that's what these people like to do. They don't like to take a side. But once again, you could see out in New York, they didn't tell the different towns and cities and everything else to lower the flags half-mast. And there were some businesses that decided, you know something, we're just going to do it. Elise Stefanik put this out and said, despite Kathy Hochul's heartless refusing to fly flags at half-mast in New York State after the horrific assassination of Charlie Kirk, businesses, homes, and communities are doing so. Thank you, Bass Pro Shops in Saratoga County, New York. They did it. And there are many, many other people that have done this. And we could see that there are many individuals in many different industries, the medical industry. There was a nurse that said to a doctor, I can't believe that you are glad that Charlie Kirk is dead. You're a doctor. You're supposed to be saving lives. And what's very interesting is they decided to suspend her, but not the doctor. And then, of course, she was making the rounds, and all of a sudden they reinstated her, and the doctor resigned. Isn't it amazing that they go after the person that's reporting or, showing that this person is a doctor and they're wishing that someone died? And they always arrest that individual that is reporting this. You can see that here in this country. You can see it out in the UK, France, and many other places. This is how the deep state actually works. Even those in the military, there are certain individuals that were cheering and happy that Charlie Kirk was assassinated. Nick Sorter put this out and said, Army Colonel Scott Stevens has been suspended by War Secretary Pete Hegseth after he justified the killing of Charlie Kirk. Woke members of the military are exposing themselves and being purged from the ranks. And yes, this is exactly what is happening right now. In all the different industries, people now are exposing themselves. And like we said before, they're opting to do this on their own. Nobody's forcing them. Nobody's saying, hey, what do you think? Did you think he deserved it? They're just coming out, putting it out on social media. And remember, private corporations, they have their own rules. And you have to remember, a private company, they're looking at liability. And they're looking like, holy crap, if this person flips out and they're already saying that they like someone being assassinated, what else are they happy about? Or what else are they going to do? So they're going to protect themselves. In the armed forces, in government, they have specific rules that must be followed or laws that must be followed. Representative Jason Crow put this out and said, Pete Hegseth, hunting down and prosecuting service members for their individual political beliefs is dangerous and un-American. We must condemn political violence and allow peaceful speech that doesn't impact the chain of command. Steve Miller responded to this and said, Member of Congress says that armed forces personnel should be allowed to support and encourage the assassination of a conservative and religious Americans. Those in positions of power have been deeply, chillingly radicalized. And this is not free speech when you're wishing death on someone, especially when it's an American citizen. And once again, when you start to look at the United States Armed Forces, they have certain rules about this. Article 134 covers all disorders and neglects to the prejudice of good order and discipline, or conduct that discredits the armed forces. Expressing support for killing Americans could qualify if it undermines unit cohesion, public trust, or the military's nonpartisan role. This is a catch-all for behaviors not explicitly listed elsewhere and is commonly used for speech-related issues like social media posts celebrating violence. Maximum punishment can include dishonorable discharge, forfeiture of pay, and confinement. Article 115 prohibits wrongfully communicating a threat to injure or kill someone, including through words or actions. If a service member's statement implies endorsement or encouragement of an assassination, it might cross into this territory. Even if not a direct threat, punishment can include up to 3 years confinement. Article 80 or Article 82, if the expression goes beyond mere opinion and involves attempting to commit or soliciting others to engage in murder, assassination, these apply. Even the DOD, they have policies. The DOD instruction 1325.06 explicitly prohibits advocating or engaging in the case or threat of unlawful force or violence in support of extremist activities. Extremism is defined broadly to include ideologies that promote violence, discrimination, or overthrow of the government. Supporting assassination of civilians could be flagged if it aligns with extremist views, such as targeting groups based on politics or religion. 2021 Secretary of Defense memo on countering extremist activities. 2021, Biden's time. Directs screening, training, and reporting on extremist threats within the ranks. It notes that participating in extremist activities violates the oath of office, and commands must investigate reports of such behavior. This includes insider threats where personnel might endorse violence against Americans. So basically, there are rules. And again, when these people are out there saying, oh, look at this, the conservatives are reporting. No, you decided to do this. The company that you're working for has certain rules. Maybe you should check on those before you start coming out there and telling people. But thank you for letting us know who you are. So this way you could be removed from your position. Remember, if you are going to get a job and you're like, I love to drink, and you bring your alcohol bottle and you're there drinking, they have rules against that. You think you're going to get hired? If you come into an interview and say, listen, I love that conservatives are being murdered. This is fantastic. Do you really think you're going to be hired? No, you're not. So it works the same way. If you already have the job, there's no difference here. They're going to get rid of you. And once again, who's to blame? It's themselves. They're outing themselves. It's very, very different when people say, hey, listen, I think there's election fraud. That's not breaking the law. That's not cheering on an assassination. Or you say, hey, I don't think the virus actually kills people and those masks don't work because I have peer-reviewed documents that show this. Well, that is information. Wishing someone dead is something completely and utterly different. And you can see these people, they're not stopping. They're just continually pushing this narrative, which is going to actually destroy them in the end, because the American people, they're looking at this going, wait a minute, I don't care who it is. I don't care if it's a Republican. I don't care if it's a Democrat. It makes no difference whatsoever. This is an American citizen. We're all Americans here. You're wishing him dead or her dead? I mean, people are now like, whoa, you've gone a little too far right now. NYU college Republicans put this out and said protesters sung the song written on the bullet casings, which killed Charlie Kirk at the vigil mourning his death tonight at NYU. They also threatened to kill NYU college Republican Club President Ryan Leonard. They're not looking for peace. And they're not. They don't want peace. That's the whole point of it. Most of these individuals that are part of the trans movement, they're trans-tifa. They're angry, they're pissed off, they're drugged up, they've been brainwashed, they've been radicalized, and anything that counters that, they will fight against. You have to remember, the deep state players, they did this on purpose. They empowered these people on purpose because these are their foot soldiers, and they need them to provoke riots in certain areas. They don't have enough of them, but what they need is a small group of them to provoke the criminals, to provoke the illegals in these areas. That's how they're used. And when there was a memorial that was set up for Charlie Kirk, what did these people do? They went ahead and they destroyed it. And Wokeness put this out and said, Charlie Kirk's memorial was desecrated by a teen with the same shirt as Kirk's killer. The left wing is demonic. And yes, once he started to do this, people started to grab him and threw him to the ground. The police came and they arrested this individual. But think about what they've been doing. They believe that they're still protected. They believe that the entire structure now is for them. No, the entire structure of this country now is watching them very, very closely. And the people of this country are saying, no more. We've had enough. You're not getting away with this. And what's very interesting, you have to remember, these are cults. They're brainwashed. They've been radicalized. Jonathan Chait put this out and said, the right refuses to accept that Democrats condemn the Charlie Kirk shooting. Why? Now, this is coming from The Atlantic. Cynical Publius decided to respond to this and said, cult leaders spend decades convincing their followers that all gingers are literally devils from the pits of hell. Cult followers then go out and start slaughtering gingers. Cult leaders decry the ginger deaths and say murder has no place in this cult. The Atlantic publishes an article about how sorry the cult leaders are, and Jonathan Chait posts, gingers refuse to accept that cult condemns the ginger killings. Why? See how that works? Johnny, your subterfuge-loving purveyor of filthy, gobbly-ass lies and deceit. Absolutely. And you can see this is what they do. And, of course, what are they doing? They're trying to convince people that the right is a threat. And, yes, we don't want killings, but they're fascists, they're Hitler, and they keep repeating these things. They're extremists, they're domestic terrorists. And everyone that's listening to this is saying, okay, we get what you're saying. And this is why these people are violent. And then they come out and say, hey, by the way, we don't accept this. But they're fascists, they're Hitler. And that's what they keep doing over and over and over. Governor Josh Shapiro put this out and said, no one party is immune from political violence. My family and I can attest to that. Using this rhetoric of rage and calling some of our fellow Americans scum, no matter how profound our differences, only creates more division and makes it harder to heal. That's interesting. Well, Rich Barris responds and says, you were firebombed by a pro-Palestinian sympathizer, not a conservative. They tend to be on the political left, not the right. Calling someone scum doesn't insinuate that they threaten your safety. Calling someone racist, fascist, Hitler, etc. does. Absolutely. And think about it. They're trying to use Vance Butler, who killed Melissa Hortman and her family. And they're saying, where is the outrage for this? Well, this is an absolutely terrible thing. Nobody wants to see a family murdered. And this is a horrible, horrible thing. But once again, you have to remember who did this. It was the left once again. Amuse put this out and said, Minnesota assassin Vance Bolter, a political appointee of Governor Tim Walz, shot a state representative and state senator. His car was filled with No Kings flyers, a moniker that was used as a dog whistle for Antifa and political violence. And the Minnesota assassin and Tim Walz appointee Vince Bolter wrote a letter to the FBI claiming the military trained him in secret and that Walz instructed him to take out Representative Amy Klobuchar so he could claim her Senate seat. So once again, yes, this is a terrible thing. Nobody wants this to happen. But it was the left once again. Now, let's take this to the next step. They're saying, hey, we need to calm the situation down. The right has to tone it all down. Well, give me some examples of the right saying we want you all killed. We want justice. We want you in prison for your crimes that you've committed. But let's look at the left, for example. John Ocasio-Rodham-Nolte put this out and said, they want us to laugh out loud, tone it down, and unite. And then he gives some examples, and we mentioned this one yesterday from Joe Biden. Donald Trump and MAGA Republicans are a threat to the very soul of this country. Think about that for a second. And remember when Comey put 8647 in the sand, took a picture of it and said, listen, I just saw this on the beach. I have no idea what this means. You know, he was the head of the FBI in New York, and he was the director of FBI in D.C., but he doesn't understand what 8647 means. He just thought it was just fun, and look at these cool numbers. That's just incredible. I have no idea what this means. They know exactly what it means. It's ridiculous. And how about this picture? For a party that hates guns so much, they sure do use them a lot. Think about this for a second, of what they've done here. They're the ones who are continually pushing this over and over and over. And I do believe this is why Governor Cox, he was trying to pretty much push the investigation in a certain direction. It's a lone gunman. We don't know if it's transactional. If you look at the fake news, we don't know what this person wanted to do. We have no real information. We have nothing. Well, we have a lot of information, but Hans put this out and said, notice how the moment Governor Cox appeared on the scene, a massive psyop was orchestrated to cast him as the reasonable, good Republican. This wasn't organic. It was a coordinated effort by the media, the elites, and the gatekeepers to steer Republicans back to the lane the establishment prefers, the lane of Ryans and Romneys. Absolutely. But I know people are saying, oh, Kash Patel looked confused and he didn't know what he was doing. He knows exactly what he's doing. You have to remember, he's very, very observant. He looks around, he watches people, he sees what they're doing. Sometimes it's better to stay quiet and observe the situation, understand what's going on, so you can see who's on your side, who's not on your side. And I do believe Trump does this quite a bit. He stays very quiet. He actually gives responses like, man, I don't know what's going on. I have no clue. He knows exactly what's happening. But what we do know is that Charlie Kirk's alleged assassin lived with a transgender partner who is now cooperating with the FBI. Kash Patel put this out there on X. And Kash, he has revealed new details in the case against Charlie Kirk's alleged assassin, Tyler Robinson, including information about a chilling note he allegedly wrote before the shooting. Patel paraphrased it, and he said, I have the opportunity to take out Charlie Kirk, and I'm going to take it. And he went on to Discord, and he said, yes, I'm the one who did it, and they were all partying, which we'll get into in just a sec. But what's very interesting, and Elena Johnson put this out, the FBI is now investigating social media posts by at least 7 different accounts that appear to indicate foreknowledge of the assassination of Charlie Kirk, according to 3 people familiar with the investigation and screenshots obtained by the Washington Free Beacon. So were there different individuals that knew that this was coming? Absolutely. And when you start to see them and read them, this was planned from the very, very beginning. Omar, Charlie Kirk is coming to my college tomorrow. I really hope someone evaporates him, literally. Let's just say something big will happen tomorrow, Omar says. Then we have Osama bin Sazuka. You guys, I have something big coming soon. Just be sure to check the news. You'll know when you see it. So this goes on and on and on and on. And all of these different posts, it shows that they already knew that this was planned. This should tell you everything you need to know. So basically, was it just the trans community and they were all involved in this? Or were there other individuals above these people that were coordinating all of this? Because we know that the trans movement are in Antifa, Trans-Tifa. Now, the other thing that we could see, and Director Kash Patel is letting us know that there was DNA that was left on the covering of gun, the cloth, the towel. DNA was on the rifle. DNA was also in the nest where this individual stayed. DC Drano put this out and said, FBI Director Kash Patel confirms DNA match of Tyler Robinson with the towel used to wrap the rifle and a screwdriver found at the sniper nest. ATF is analyzing the rifle itself and will provide DNA results soon. Kash confirms dozens of people in the leftist group chats are being investigated for their knowledge and coordination of Charlie's assassination. So there's just a couple of things that are a little confusing in all this. Now, there are video of this individual walking to the campus and he's limping. So people are saying that he took the rifle, shoved it down his pants, and this is why he was limping, because he had the rifle down his pants and he had the backpack on, which is very, very interesting. Now, of course, maybe he did this because he thought that this was the best way to bring it in there, but it makes no sense if he had a screwdriver with him and on the way out he dismantled the rifle and he put it in his backpack, because when they showed the video of him climbing down from the roof, all he had was the backpack. So how did he fit it in the backpack? He must have put it in there, and he had to dismantle it with the screwdriver. But he left the screwdriver on the roof? Very interesting. But then he ran into the woods, took the rifle out, and then I guess wrapped it in a towel. Maybe it was already wrapped, but did he put it back together? Because that's the picture that the FBI showed us. Or did the FBI put it together? And why would they put it together? Does that make any sense? Something is a little off. So was this actually the rifle? Or was there a different rifle? Or was there another shooter of some kind? Yes, the DNA might have been on all of this, because once again, he probably handled all of these different things. But something is out of place. Maybe we'll find out. Maybe as they keep digging, Let's talk about our health. A 2025 survey found that over half of U.S. adults are concerned about how their skin is aging, and 40% fixate on random wrinkles or dark spots. If that sounds like you're not alone, more and more people are noticing visible changes in their skin far earlier than expected. This is why I use my secret anti-aging weapon, and I'm obsessed with the changes I've noticed in my skin. It provides my skin with 5 must-have types of premium collagen needed to reduce wrinkles. Since taking it, I've experienced smoother skin, more elasticity, fewer fine lines, and more youthful glow. Plus, it mixes smoothly with my morning coffee or tea with no taste or clumps. Be sure to grab a bag of Ageless Multi-Collagen now while it's 51% off only at healthwithx22.com, and help take years off the clock. Plus, by ordering now, you're also guaranteed to get free VIP live health and fitness coaching for life, a free ebook titled The 14 Foods for Amazing Skin, a 60-day satisfaction guarantee, and free shipping. Once again, that website is healthwithx22.com, or just click the link in the description. Figure it all out, and they say, oh, now, wait, we have different information. Because, again, we're still waiting for the ballistic test. Was this actually the rifle? Does it match the bullet that was used? And from earlier reports, we were told that the shell was still inside the gun. So this is going to be very, very interesting as we move forward. And let's see how this all plays out. But you can see the deep state players, they don't want Kash to investigate anymore. Now, think about it. Why would they start an op to go after Kash right now? Now, number one, we know that he'll be investigating the 2020 elections, the 2024 elections. He's investigating this, and probably investigating a lot more that has to do with Russia. So, yes, do they want to stop him? But they also want him to stop this investigation into the shooter. And we could see that this is a coordinated op between the Ds. Svetlana Lokova put this out and said, the op against Kash is coordinated, and it's going to get more intense by Tuesday when Kash heads to the Hill to expose the deep state players. Remember, Kash now, he will be testifying in front of the Senate Judiciary Committee on Tuesday, and he's expected to notify the Oversight Committee that the former FBI leadership, including Andy McCabe and Peter Strzok, obstructed justice and prevented congressional oversight in relation to the Russian collusion and everything else, which means there might be another distraction headed our way. We'll have to see how this all plays out because this, again, as information hits the airwaves, what normally happens, there's some type of distraction. Now, I'm not saying there's going to be a huge explosion someplace, but once again, there might be some type of incident someplace where all of a sudden the news focuses on that event that is occurring. And Trump, he has Cash's back completely. I do believe Cash knows exactly what's going on. He knows how to figure things out. Remember, going back in time, it was Kash Patel and Devin Nunes that figured out the entire Russian collusion thing. They're the ones who broke it down. They're the ones who investigated. They're the ones who figured out how they did it. And actually, Cash actually wrote a book about it called Government Gangsters, and it was put into a movie. If you haven't seen it, you should go see it because he really breaks it down. So they're the ones who figured that out. You don't think Cash and team can figure out what happened here? Absolutely. But what Trump and the team like to do, they like to have the fake news, all these different Ds and the rest come out and tell you a story, and then they drip out more evidence, and they tell you another story, and they drip out more evidence. And this continues on over and over and over. And by the time they're done, they've just trapped themselves in all of this. And from all of this that we're seeing right now, we can see by Trump putting up that video yesterday of this girl saying, listen, we need to do something about the Smith-Mundt Act. We can see now that this is now being looked at, and there will be legislation now that it most likely will eventually be passed where we will no longer allow the fake news to use propaganda. The Skiff put this out and said, the Smith-Mundt Act was signed back into law by Obama in 2013. It's literally legal to lie on a daily basis. Basically, the fake news, because of the Smith-Mundt Act, they have the ability to use propaganda on the people. This is all about the change. Why do I say this? Because Senator Mike Lee, he filed a bombshell legislation to crush the entire propaganda machine. This is why the fake news can report the way they're reporting right now. Now, back in 1948, the Smith-Mundt Act, officially the United States Information and Educational Exchange Act, allowed the U.S. government to conduct foreign propaganda campaigns, radio film exchanges, cultural outreach aimed at influencing foreign populations during the Cold War. It could not be used here in the United States. But the law contained one critical safeguard. Propaganda made for foreign audiences was forbidden from being used inside the United States. Washington could not psyop its own people. This firewall stood for more than 6 decades. In 2012, tucked into the National Defense Authorization Act of 2013, Congress passed the Smith-Mundt Modernization Act, introduced by Representative Mac Thornberry and signed by Barack Obama on January 2nd, 2013. By the way, Representative Mac Thornberry was a Republican from Texas, a rhino. It shredded the firewall and legalized domestic distribution of State Department and U.S. Agency for Global Media, formerly Broadcasting Board of Governors materials. By July 2nd, 2013, it was official. U.S. citizens can now be subjected to the same government-crafted propaganda once reserved for foreigners. So basically, they put all of this in motion to convince you of fake information to drive their agendas. And you've been lied to since 2013. Think about that for a second. The tyrannical government, the criminal syndicate, has been using propaganda on the people since 2013. Does it all start to make sense now of everything that we've seen? Absolutely. Rasmussen Reports asked a question, and they took a poll. And this is what they said. The Smith-Mundt Act prohibited disseminating government-produced info inside the U.S. because of concerns that government agencies would propagandize Americans. And behold, they asked a question. How likely is it that the U.S. intelligence agencies are influencing news media coverage of political issues? All voters. And this is the results. 33% very likely, 31% somewhat likely, 17% not very likely, 10% not at all likely, 10% not sure. So 64% of the people believe that, yes, U.S. intelligence agencies are basically using propaganda on the American people. Well, it looks like the jig is up, and now people, they're starting to see the truth. Now, what's very interesting, since the assassination of Charlie Kirk, and yesterday we mentioned that they have requests of about 18,000 chapters. That 18,000 chapter number went up to 32,000 chapters. I mean, think about what is happening right now. It's absolutely unbelievable. They unleashed a storm that cannot be stopped right now. This is devastating for the deep state players. And what's very interesting is that President Trump, while he was being interviewed, he let everyone know that there's an investigation going on certain far left groups. And basically, I do believe he's talking about Antifa and probably other groups. Just take a listen to what he said here.
When we attack people, we have to be careful.
You mentioned Charlie Kirk, sir. What organizations on the left do you anticipate investigating? We talked about this last week.
Well, the problem is on the left. If you look at the problem is on the left. It's not on the right, like some people like to say on the right. The problem we have is on the left. And when you look at the agitators, you look at the scum that speaks so badly of our country, the American flag burnings all over the place, that's the left, that's not the right.
Do you plan on investigating?
We'll see. We'll be announcing. They're already under investigation. You know, they're already under major investigation. A lot of the people that you would traditionally say are on the left.
They're already under investigation?
Already under investigation.
Have you asked to start revoking the visas of those who have celebrated Charlie Kirk's death?
What?
Have you asked to start revoking the visas of the foreigners who have celebrated Charlie Kirk's death?
No, we haven't, but we are looking at names. We don't like that. That's not right. We wouldn't celebrate if something happened on their side, and we don't. These are sick people. These are really deranged people.
Any progress on the Fed chairman, sir?
Amused responded to all this and said, Antifa. The assassination of Charlie Kirk involved America's far left, and the president will not give them cover. Antifa will be destroyed. And I do believe in the end he's going to designate Antifa as a domestic terrorist group, which means when they riot in the streets and the National Guard is prepositioned, we're going to see the National Guard, all of a sudden, they're going to be called upon. Trump's going to use the Insurrection Act. They're going to be able to work with the Marines. And this is going to be shut down very, very quickly. Clandestine put this out and said, the FBI are now investigating social media accounts that appeared to have foreknowledge of Kirk's assassination, combined with the ongoing investigation to other members in the Discord servers, combined with the trans partner left-wing extremist. I think we're going to find out that Charlie's assassination was not just one left-wing lunatic, but rather a coordinated effort by a terrorist left-wing group organization that convinced Robinson to do it. And they all knew it was going to happen. Many of these left-wing groups are funded by George Soros, Antifa being suspect number one. They are the brown shirts of the Democratic Party, a paramilitary organization used for violence and intimidation. Then take into account the Antifa phrases carved onto the bullet casings, calling Charlie a fascist and Bella Ciao. I think it's safe to assume Robinson had some Antifa influence. We find out Antifa or one of these other left-wing Soros-funded groups are involved with the coordinating this attack. Charlie's assassination could serve as the catalyst to declare the entire Soros network as a terrorist organization. So let's just put this in perspective. If Antifa, like we do believe, is actually working and actually coordinate all this, maybe Antifa got his fingerprints, got his DNA on the rifle, planted it in the woods to make sure that that was found, but the actual rifle he still has. I mean, we'll have to wait to see how this all plays out, but this is going to be very, very interesting. And think about it. The deep state players, they keep saying, oh, it's the right, they're extremists and things like that. Well, let's put all this in perspective. And Red Eagle Politics put this out and said, left-wing violence doesn't happen. Most violence is right-wing. Well, let's take a look at this. Far left violence since 2016. Let's see, 2016 BLM riots. Nope, not right, people. 2016 police shooting in Dallas. 2016 police shooting in Baton Rouge. 2016 NYPD officer shot as revenge for Eric Gardner. 2017 Trump inauguration riots. 2017 Berkeley riots. 2017 congressional GOP baseball practice shooting. 2018 ICE facilities firebombed. 2019 Dayton shooting. 2020 BLM riots, countless damage, on facilities. 2020 fatal Chaz shootings. 2020 shootings of Aaron Danielson. 2021 unjustified Ashley Babbitt shooting. 2021 Waukesha massacre. 2022 far left assassination plot on Dem mayoral candidate. 2022 Lee Zeldin stabbing attempt. 2023 Tennessee Christian School. 2023 Evergreen, Colorado school shooting. 2024 Butler. 2024 second assassination attempt on Trump. 2024 Abundant Life Christian School shooting. 2024 United Healthcare CEO murder. 2025 Teslas lit on fire. 2025 murder at the Israeli embassy. 2025 Josh Shapiro firebombing attempt by Hamas sympathizer. 2025 LA ICE riots and attacks on ICE officers. 2025 ICE facilities ambush, officers shot. 2025 Minnesota lawmaker shooting. 2025 Minneapolis Christian School. 2025 anti-white North Carolina stabbing. 2025 various attacks on GOP offices. 2025 attempted Utah news station firebombing. 2025 Charlie Kirk assassination in Utah. So let's see, is it the right or is it the left? All of these are left. Think about it. And most of these have to do with trans or Antifa. And also those people that are pushing Hamas and Palestine, they're also part of Antifa, which then leads into trans people. Think about this for a second. It's always the same groups. Now, Trump, he put out something very, very interesting on Truth. He said, I would rather go to ribbon cutting than to groundbreakings. Now, does this have to do with the new ballroom? By the way, he says the new ballroom is going to be a lot bigger than initially anticipated. But again, why would you want to go to ribbon cuttings than groundbreakings? Well, groundbreaking is when you're beginning. That's when you're digging. This is when you're preparing. This is when you're starting out. Well, he's just starting out with the ballroom. Or is he talking about something different? He started out in 2016. That was the groundbreaking. But I think we're at the part where we're at the ribbon cutting because we're about to finish all of this off. I don't mean tomorrow. We have to get the House. We have to get the Senate. Yes, we're going to have accountability, but we're getting very close to the ribbon cutting where we can present it all to the public so the public understands. And he put this out at 2:06, and it says the following. Can't wait for the green light. Teams on standby. Think about this for a second. Now, Charlie Kirk's memorial service is going to be on Sunday, September 21st, 2025 at State Farm Stadium in Glendale, Arizona. This is like a very big NFL stadium. It can hold a lot of people. And once again, it's a stadium. I know people are very nervous about this because, again, there's going to be a lot of people in one place. Will the deep state players try to do something? Well, I hope they have a lot of security. I hope everything is in place. And I hope that there are no events whatsoever. But again, you could see the deep state players, they are becoming very, very desperate. Everything that they have been doing is getting more and more bold, and they're pushing very, very hard because, again, when you trap a wild animal in the corner, they come out, they start to scratch, they start to bite, and you're starting to see all of this. They can't use words anymore. They're going complete and utterly physical in all of this. I mean, just look what happened out in Utah. OSINT defender put this out and said, federal authorities in Salt Lake City, Utah have arrested two suspects, 58-year-old Adib Nasir and 31-year-old Adil Justice and Ami Nasir, long name, for allegedly attempting to destroy a news media vehicle with an incendiary device. So these people were going to blow up a news vehicle, and who are they going to blame this on? Think about that for a second. Then we have Stephen King. He's walking down the street and he's telling everyone, it's time. You got to see my new movie, The Long Walk. And on his shirt, he actually has a badge that says 47. Very interesting. So he put this out on Sunday. He said it's Sunday, but there's still time. So is he trying to tell people, is he signaling that there's still time to assassinate Trump? I mean, think about this for a second. I mean, you think it's just a coincidence that he has number 47 around his neck? I mean, this guy can barely walk right now. But think about this for a second. And think about all the illegals in this country and the crimes that they have committed and the crimes that they're still committing. And what's very interesting, there was an individual who was beheaded right in front of his wife and son. And and it was done by an illegal. I mean, think about the crimes that they're committing here. These are the people that the deep state players are brought in here, and they infiltrated our country, just like you see out in France, just like you see out in the UK. Trump, he put this out on Truth and said, I'm aware of the terrible reports regarding the murder of Chandra, a well-respected person in Dallas, Texas, who was brutally beheaded in front of his wife and son by an illegal alien from Cuba who should have never been in our country. This individual was previously arrested for terrible crimes, including child sex abuse, grand theft auto, and false imprisonment, but was released back into our homeland under incompetent Joe Biden because Cuba did not want such an evil person in their country. Rest assured, the time for being soft on these illegal immigrant criminals is over under my watch. Secretary of Homeland Security Kristi Noem, Attorney General Pam Bondi, Border Czar Tom Homan, and many others in my administration are doing an incredible job in making America safe again. This criminal who we have in custody will be prosecuted to the full extent of the law. He'll be charged with murder in the first degree. Actually, he probably should get the death penalty. All these people that kill someone, death penalty. And they should be hung in the public square to send a clear message. We will not tolerate this in the United States. These people murder innocent individuals. They're in our country. They're not citizens. And yes, they will get due process. But I do believe the message has to be clear. And you can see Japan right now, they are now bringing in immigrants from Egypt. Tokyo already is the largest city in the world. They don't have a labor shortage. And it's strange that George Soros was visiting Yuriko Koike, the governor of Tokyo. I wonder what they were setting up. Elon Musk says mass immigration to Japan will destroy Japan. Absolutely, it will destroy it. It's going to be a complete and utter disaster. But I do believe, I think the people in Japan, I don't know if they're going to take it. I think they're going to rise up pretty darn fast. And you can see out in the UK, the people are getting pretty darn angry with Keir Starmer. I think they've had enough. And basically, Starmer, he's on his last leg here. And he's trying to basically defend the illegals, defend the people that are actually saying they don't want these people in the country. And these people that are committing crimes in the country, he's defending them. Starmer says the UK flag represents our diverse country and will never surrender it to those that use it as a symbol of violence, fear, and division. I mean, think about this. Who's he really defending? It's the same exact message that you hear in this country. And Keir Starmer's approval rating in the UK is at a record low. Wall Street Maverick put this out and said his Labour Party members of Parliament are actively discussing who should replace him. The consensus is that Starmer can't recover to lead them in the next election. They have to try another prime minister. Yeah, it's completely and utterly falling apart. And I do believe you're going to see a lot of people in that party probably shift over to Nigel Farage because once again, you're seeing that he's going to be dethroned in the end. There's no way that the people are going to keep him. There's no way that these people are going to tolerate him anymore. The jig is up. Just like Macron. Look at their approval rating. It's in the dirt. The people are going to rise up any second. And this is why they're trying to push a war. And they're pushing very, very hard right now. And what's very interesting is that Finland's president says we are now starting to see the change of world order. Right now, we're living in a 1918, 1945, 1989 moment in world history. We just don't know where the world is going to go. Is it going to go with the new world order, the deep state players, or is it going to go with Trump? I do believe the people are waking up across this great world, and the people now are never, ever going to allow us to move into the new world order. I do believe what we're seeing here in the United States, it's a mass awakening like we've never seen before. And we're going to see that whatever the deep state players are trying to do, it's going to completely and utterly fail. Because if you don't have the people, there's nothing to shift. If the people aren't going along and they're pushing back and saying absolutely not, you can't shift them. You could try to use fear. You could try an event. But if people are awake, it's not going to work. Which means we just had Klaus Schwab out there letting everyone know that this is the perfect time for the Great Reset. We had Christine Lagarde out there saying, get the central bank digital currency ready, which means they're now projecting what they're planning to do. And I do believe they're going to try some type of an event because this is all they have left. Think about what has been happening in this country and around the world. The people are waking up and all they have left is an event with fear. What is that event? Well, we know going back in time, the World Economic Forum said, this is, the entire world is ripe for a cyber attack. So I wouldn't be surprised if they try something. Doesn't mean it's going to work, but you can see that they're leading up to this. And Trump, every step of the way, he's letting the deep state players know, listen, we're not going to have discussions. We're not going to say, hey, don't bring the drugs into the United States. If we spot you, if we detect you, you're finished. That is, you're a terrorist organization. We're at war, and we're going to hit you and hit you hard. Trump, he put this out on Truth. He said the following. This morning on my orders, U.S. military forces conducted a second kinetic strike against positively identified extraordinarily violent drug trafficking cartels and narco-terrorists in the Southcom area of responsibility. The strike occurred while these confirmed narco-terrorists from Venezuela were in international waters transporting illegal narcotics, a deadly weapon poisoning Americans headed to the U.S. These extremely violent drug trafficking cartels pose a threat to the U.S. national security, foreign policy, and the vital U.S. interest. The strike resulted in 3 male terrorists killed in action. No U.S. forces were harmed in this strike. Be warned, if you are transporting drugs that can kill Americans, we are hunting you. The illicit activities by these cartels have wrought devastating consequences on American communities for decades, killing millions of American citizens no longer. Thank you for your attention to this matter. And again, these people will never see it coming. And this is the second message right now. Let's see what happens to all these narco-terrorists. Are they going to continue to transport? Are they going to change it up? Because again, Trump and team, they're watching and they're going to hit them very, very hard. And what's very interesting is that French President Macron, he privately admitted that NATO is the driving force behind the Ukraine conflict. And this is coming from American economist Jeffrey Sachs. Macron, along with other Western leaders, has repeatedly claimed that Russia launched its military operation against Ukraine in 2022. No, it was Obama, Victoria Nuland, Joe Biden, Hillary Clinton. They overthrew the government in Ukraine, and Russia saw what was happening, and they decided, something, you're not getting Crimea, and the Russian-speaking lands close to Russia, they started to fight back. So it was actually the deep state players that started all this. And when this individual, Sachs, was speaking to Macron, he actually said, no, NATO was causing this war. That's interesting. Kirill Dmitriev put this out and said, and responding to the Washington Post, and this is what the Washington Post says, since President Putin's invitation to Alaska by President Trump, Russia has been emboldened in its strategy or splitting the U.S. from Europe while pushing ever hard to gain a military victory in Ukraine. Kirill Dmitriev said, false, EU warmongers pushing the war to the last Ukrainian are the ones prolonging it. They are sabotaging Trump's peace plan. And that's exactly what's happening. The deep state players, they're pushing this war. But this is all they have left. This is part of their 16-year plan to start World War III. This is why they'll never, ever go along with what Trump proposed. They all came to the U.S., but if you notice, they're continually pushing war very, very hard. And they're probably going to use a false flag to push this over the edge. I wouldn't be surprised if they use a cyber attack from Russia saying they're cyber attacking the world. They're trying to start World War III. We have to stop them. And I wouldn't be surprised if there's another event in Ukraine where they're going to blame it on Russia. But I think Trump and the Patriots, they know this. But the only way to get the people on the side of peace is to show them what maybe a nuclear war or a cyber war might look like. And then all of a sudden, when people start to see this in all these different countries, remember, their approval ratings are very, very low for these deep state players. Once the people see it, they're going to say absolutely not. Remember, the approval ratings of these installed individuals, they're so low that they need a war. Trump is allowing them to go down this path when they try to start the war, the people, they're going to jump up and say, okay, we got to get rid of these people. They're trying to bring us into a nuclear war. I do believe in the end, the world is going to demand Trump's peace plan. And I do believe this is the path he's bringing all of these people down. Very, very interesting. But you can see the deep state players, they're still moving forward with their infiltration. Right now, and Brian Metzger put this out, Senator Chris Von Hollen, you remember the guy that went down to visit his constituent, the Maryland man who's the wife beater, the MS-13 gang member, the human trafficker, the child trafficker, you name it. Well, the same guy is now criticizing New York members of Congress who haven't endorsed Mamdani's candidacy for New York City mayor. I think a lot of D's are sitting there going, listen, I don't really want to go and nominate this person. I don't want to endorse this person. This is not what I believe in. I mean, think about it. Would you ever imagine after 9/11, people are looking at Mamdani going, yeah, this is the guy to run New York. I mean, really think about this for a second. Remember, everyone keeps saying never again, never again. And here we are today. And Kathy Hochul of New York endorsed Mamdani. Trump, he put this out and said, Governor Kathy Hochul of New York has endorsed the little communist Mamdani running for mayor in New York. This is rather shocking development and a very bad one for New York City. How can such a thing happen? Washington will be watching the situation very closely. No reason to be sending good money after bad. President DJT. The people of New York are going to be absolutely shocked and surprised if this individual gets in, because you're going to see New York start to really, I mean, it's bad now. It's going to really start to go downhill. And I think if this individual actually becomes the mayor, the people of New York, I don't know if they're going to be able to take this. I think they're all going to hit the precipice, and we're going to see that they're going to actually probably remove this individual. I wouldn't be surprised. But let's see. Sometimes you got to show the people. Sometimes people have to see it. Let's see how this all plays out. This is going to be very, very interesting. Now, Trump he's setting up the narrative right now to bring the National Guard into all these different cities. And he's showing that, listen, look what I did to D.C. I was able to clean it up, and now it's safe. Now, of course, the 30 days is up, and we could see that Congress, Mayor Muriel Bowser, she doesn't want the National Guard working with the police anymore. But again, we have to understand that this is not a state, and Trump has authority over it, and he doesn't need Congress to keep the National Guard in place. But let me just read what Trump put out on Truth. The federal government, under my auspices as President of the United States of America, has stepped into the complete criminal mess that was Washington, D.C., our nation's capital. Because of this, D.C. has gone from one of the most dangerous and murder-ridden cities in the USA and even around the world to one of the safest. In just a few weeks, the place is absolutely booming with restaurants, stores, and businesses packed, and for the first time in decades, virtually no crime. It has been a beautiful thing to watch, but now, under pressure from the radical left Democrats, Mayor Muriel Bowser, who has presided over the violent criminal takeover of our capital for years, has informed the federal government that the Metropolitan Police Department will no longer cooperate with ICE in removing and relocating dangerous illegal aliens. If I allowed this to happen, crime would come roaring back. To the people and businesses of Washington, D.C., don't worry, I'm with you, and won't allow this to happen. I'll call a national emergency and federalize if necessary. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Make America great again. President DJT. Now look at Muriel Bowser did a 180. And you know this is being done on purpose because they want the crime back. So Trump really doesn't need Congress to keep the National Guard in D.C. after 30 days. As the commander-in-chief of the D.C. National Guard, which operates differently from the state National Guards due to D.C. federal status, the president has broad statutory authority to deploy and maintain it without specified time limits under relevant D.C. code provisions, such as Section 49-103 for aiding law enforcement during riots or threats, and Section 49-102 for other duties as deemed proper. This contrasts with President's control over D.C. Metropolitan Police Department, which is capped at 30 days under the 1973 Home Rule Act, unless extended by a congressional joint resolution. So the part where National Guard works with the Metropolitan Police, yes, that has ended. And right now, he could still keep the National Guard there. But let's see how this all plays out. This is going to be very, very interesting. Now, what's very interesting is Schumer, he is now pushing to shut down the government. And we could see that they're trying to put a lot of pressure on Trump, and they want everything coming to a screeching halt. Now, is it really going to affect the people? No, it's going to affect Trump's plans, because you have to remember, he needs certain things in place to move forward. And at this point in time, I don't think he wants the government shut down. It will affect everyone's everyday lives? No, it won't. But again, we need certain things operational so Trump can complete the agenda and move forward with the mission and the plan. And Trump, he figured out a way to keep the government open. And this is what he put out on Truth. Congressional Republicans, including Leader John Thune and Speaker Mike Johnson, are working on a short-term clean extension of government funding to stop crying Chuck Schumer from shutting down the government. In times like these, Republicans have to stick together to fight back against the radical left Democrats' demands and vote yes on both votes needed to pass a clean CR this week out of the House of Representatives. Democrats want the government to shut down. Republicans want the government to open. Democrats love crime. Republicans make our country safe. We hate crime. Failure is not an option. Thank you for your attention to this matter. President DJT. So I do believe that they will be able to basically put together a short-term clean extension of government and stop Schumer in his tracks. So this way, they do not have the upper hand. But we'll have to see how this all plays out. But I do believe you could see the deep state players. And you have to remember this. We're at war with the deep state players. They're going to try every single tactic. Yes, you could see they're still using information, but they are still now moving towards a physical war. And I do believe you're going to see them start to move away from informational warfare and move into physical warfare, which we're now experiencing. And this is just going to get worse and worse as time goes on, because remember, they're fighting for their lives. And they're going to try to push back as hard as they possibly can. Remember, they're criminals. They're not just going to say, oh my God, sorry, you caught us, we're treasonous, arrest us, here's my hands, put handcuffs on me. They're not going to do that. They're going to fight back with everything that they have. Yes, they will try to start World War III. They will push an event. They will try to hurt the people in this country and the people around the world. They don't care. But again, with a population that is awake and a world that is waking up now, it's going to be very, very difficult, because again, once the world is thinking logically, once the world is awake, you can't push the events like you used to push. They don't work. And this is going to be a major problem for them. And this is why Trump needed to bring us down this path and begin the process of waking the people up. And this is why he took control of the country. This is why he put the president in place, which is Biden. This is why people needed to see it, and people still need to see it. And the mass awakening that we're seeing right now is going to counter everything the deep state players are trying to do. And Trump is counting on this. And yes, it's going to work. And the deep state players are going to lose. Why? Because the Patriots are in control. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.